By March 1945, the United States Army deployed roughly 16 armored divisions across the European theater, representing one of history's largest concentrations of mechanized warfare capability. These consistently trained and equipped formations, organized according to standardized tables of organization from 1942 through 1945, operated from the Normandy beaches to the Elbe River, from the Ardennes forests to the Austrian Alps. Each division contained approximately 10,000 personnel, fielded around 200 tanks when at full strength, and served one essential function: breaking through enemy defensive positions and exploiting deep into rear areas. With Germany's December 1944 Ardennes offensive, this mission became critically urgent. American military planners faced an immediate tactical challenge: stopping the German breakthrough while simultaneously maintaining offensive pressure along a front stretching over 400 miles. The challenge represented unprecedented demands on American armored forces. The U.S. Army had never confronted such simultaneous defensive and offensive requirements across such extended frontage. Among these armored divisions, one unit, the 9th Armored Division, would achieve distinction through 3 separate actions that collectively defined its wartime service. The division participated in desperate defensive fighting during the Battle of the Bulge, captured intact the last bridge across the Rhine River, and ultimately linked with Soviet forces deep in Austria. These 3 moments, spanning December 1944 through May 1945, demonstrated the division's tactical flexibility and operational endurance. The 9th Armored Division had consumed substantial American military resources during its formation and training, representing years of institutional investment and doctrinal development. Activated at Fort Riley, Kansas, in July 1942, the division spent over 2 years preparing for combat. It trained crews, absorbed equipment, developed unit cohesion, and refined the combined arms tactics that American armor doctrine emphasized. By the time the division arrived in Europe during September 1944, it represented a fully mature combat formation ready for immediate commitment. The division's organizational structure followed the standard American Armored Division design of 1943. This configuration included 3 tank battalions, 3 armored infantry battalions, 3 armored field artillery battalions, plus supporting cavalry reconnaissance, engineer, and medical units. The design emphasized balanced combined arms capability over pure tank strength. American doctrine stressed coordination between tanks, infantry, artillery, and supporting arms, rather than massed armor formations operating independently. Combat command structure provided operational flexibility. The division organized into 3 combat commands, A, B, and Reserve, each capable of independent operations. Division commanders could task organize these commands by attaching various battalion-sized units according to mission requirements. This system allowed rapid reorganization to meet changing tactical situations, a capability that proved essential during the fluid combat of late 1944 and early 1945. Equipment reflected American industrial capacity and doctrinal preferences. The division's primary combat vehicle was the M4 Sherman medium tank, armed with a 75mm gun and protected by armor adequate against most German weapons except the heaviest anti-tank guns and tank cannons. The Sherman's mechanical reliability, ease of maintenance, and good crew ergonomics offset its inferior armor and firepower compared to German Panthers and Tigers. American doctrine accepted these limitations, relying on numerical superiority, tactical mobility, and combined arms coordination rather than vehicle-to-vehicle superiority. Each Sherman carried a 5-man crew: commander, gunner, loader, driver, and assistant driver, who also operated the bow machine gun. The assistant gunner position, also functioning as radio operator, proved particularly demanding. This crewman maintained communication equipment, operated the bow machine gun during combat, and assisted the driver with navigation and vehicle maintenance. Combat casualties often required crew members to shift positions, with assistant drivers moving up to become gunners when casualties occurred. The division's arrival in Europe during autumn 1944 placed it into an operational environment dramatically different from training expectations. By September, Allied forces had liberated France and driven to Germany's western frontier. The rapid advance had outrun supply lines, forcing operational pauses while logistics caught up. The 9th Armored Division initially received relatively quiet sectors along the German border, allowing gradual introduction to combat conditions through patrol actions and small-scale attacks. This situation changed catastrophically on December 16, 1944. German forces launched Operation Wacht am Rhein, their last major western offensive, striking through the Ardennes region with 3 armies totaling 30 divisions. The attack achieved complete tactical surprise, hitting American positions held primarily by inexperienced or exhausted divisions recuperating from earlier fighting. German forces quickly penetrated deep into American lines, creating bulges and pockets throughout the Ardennes sector. The 9th Armored Division found itself directly in the offensive's path. Combat Command A deployed in Luxembourg near Beaufort, occupying positions along what suddenly became a critical hinge point for German penetrations. As German forces pushed westward, Combat Command A fought desperate delaying actions intended to slow enemy advances, while American reserves moved into blocking positions. The night of December 18, 1944, brought particularly intense fighting around Beaufort. German forces launched coordinated attacks attempting to widen their penetration and cut off American units. Combat Command. Mounted counterattacks intended to relieve surrounded American pockets and restore defensive lines. These operations occurred in darkness, across unfamiliar terrain, against an enemy whose exact positions remained unclear. Sherman crews found themselves fighting at point-blank ranges against German armor and anti-tank weapons. The enclosed Luxembourg countryside, with its narrow roads bordered by thick forests and steep hillsides, negated American advantages in mobility and long-range gunnery. Combat devolved into brutal close-quarters engagements where crew training, unit cohesion, and individual courage determined outcomes. Casualties mounted rapidly under these conditions. Tank crews faced multiple threats: German tank guns, anti-tank weapons, artillery, and infantry assault teams equipped with Panzerfausts. A Sherman struck by armor-piercing ammunition might brew up instantly, killing or severely wounding crew members who couldn't escape burning vehicles. Even near misses from high-explosive rounds could wound crew members through spalling, metal fragments breaking off the tank's interior surfaces and ricocheting inside the crew compartment. The fighting around Beaufort demonstrated the desperate nature of the Battle of the Bulge's opening days. American units fought not for territorial gain, but for survival, trading space for time while reserves assembled. The 9th Armored Division's actions, though tactically defensive and strategically reactive, proved operationally significant. Every hour German forces spent fighting through American positions was an hour American commanders gained to organize counterattacks. By late December, the German offensive had stalled. American reinforcements, particularly the 101st Airborne Division's defense of Bastogne and Patton's Third Army's relief operations, halted German advances. The Battle of the Bulge transitioned from German offensive to American counteroffensive. The 9th Armored Division, having suffered heavy casualties during defensive operations, reorganized and prepared to resume offensive operations. The division's next major action came during March 1945, when American forces launched operations to close up to the Rhine River along its entire length. Capturing bridges intact was considered nearly impossible. German orders mandated destroying all Rhine crossings before enemy capture. Dozens of bridges had already been demolished as American forces approached. On March 7, 1945, a task force from Combat Command B 9th Armored Division approached the town of Remagen. The force, built around Company A of the 27th Armored Infantry Battalion, was conducting what appeared to be a routine advance when scouts reported something extraordinary. The Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen remained standing. The bridge, a railroad structure built during World War I, spanned the Rhine at one of its narrowest points. German engineers had prepared it for demolition with explosives, intending to destroy it once their forces completed withdrawal across the river. Through a combination of communication failures, command confusion, and premature detonation of preliminary charges that failed to collapse the bridge, the structure remained intact as American forces approached. The decision to attempt immediate capture required split-second assessment. Bridge approaches were covered by German fire. Demolition charges remained in place. German engineers might detonate them at any moment. Yet the opportunity was unprecedented. Capturing a Rhine crossing intact would allow immediate exploitation into Germany's industrial heartland, potentially shortening the war by weeks or months. Lieutenant Karl Timmermann, commanding Company A, ordered the attack. His infantry, supported by tanks, rushed the bridge under fire. German defenders fired from pillboxes and entrenchments. Partway across, German engineers triggered remaining demolition charges. The resulting explosion damaged but did not collapse the bridge. American infantry continued forward, cleared German defenders from the eastern bank, and secured the bridgehead. The capture's strategic significance became immediately apparent. Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force ordered maximum exploitation. Engineers rushed forward to repair damage and remove remaining explosives. Additional forces crossed to expand the bridgehead. Within 24 hours, thousands of American troops occupied the Rhine's eastern bank. Within a week, the bridgehead contained multiple divisions preparing for breakout operations. The 9th Armored Division's role in the Remagen capture brought temporary fame. News reports celebrated the bridge's capture as a major Allied victory. The division received credit for operational opportunism and tactical audacity. Yet the achievement carried costs. German forces launched immediate counterattacks, attempting to eliminate the bridgehead. The Ludendorff Bridge, damaged during capture and strained by heavy traffic, collapsed on March 17th, killing 28 American engineers working on repairs. Despite the bridge's collapse, the Remagen bridgehead served its purpose. American engineers constructed multiple pontoon bridges, maintaining supply flow to forces advancing eastward. The 9th Armored Division continued operations, pushing deeper into Germany as the Reich's defenses crumbled. By April 1945, German resistance west of the Elbe River had effectively ended. American strategy shifted toward occupying designated zones per Allied agreements with the Soviet Union. The 9th Armored Division moved southeast toward Austria, advancing through fragmenting German formations, offering sporadic resistance. The European War's final weeks brought rapid movement and minimal combat for most American units. German forces increasingly sought to surrender to Western allies rather than face Soviet capture. The 9th Armored Division advanced through Bavaria into Austria, occupying territory with more concern for civil affairs than combat operations. Near Linz, Austria, during early May 1945, elements of the 9th Armored Division made contact with Soviet forces advancing westward. These meetings, replicated at multiple locations along the Elbe River and in Austria, symbolized the Third Reich's final collapse. American and Soviet soldiers, having fought across Europe from opposite directions, met amid Germany's ruins. The meetings near Linz lacked the spontaneous celebration that characterized the more famous Elbe River link-ups. By early May, both American and Soviet forces had been advancing for days through surrendering German territory. The war's end was apparent. These link-ups represented administrative formalities more than dramatic culminations. For the 9th Armored Division, the meeting with Soviet forces marked the end of combat operations. The division had traveled from the Luxembourg forests through the Rhine, crossing to Austria's interior, participating in the European theater's final campaign. Unlike many divisions that saw continuous heavy combat, the 9th Armored experienced distinct phases: defensive crisis during the Bulge, operational triumph at Remagen, and rapid exploitation during Germany's collapse. The division's casualty figures reflected this varied experience. Losses during the Battle of the Bulge were substantial, with many units suffering 20–30% casualties during December's fighting. Remagen operations brought additional casualties, both from German resistance and the bridge collapse. Final operations into Austria proved relatively bloodless as German resistance evaporated. Post-war, the division remained in occupation duties through 1945 before returning to the United States in 1946. Like most wartime armored divisions, it was inactivated as the Army demobilized. The division was briefly reactivated during the 1950s before final inactivation in 1962. The 9th Armored Division's legacy rests primarily on two actions: the desperate fighting around Beaufort during the Battle of the Bulge and the Remagen Bridge capture. These moments represented the extremes of armored warfare: defensive crisis requiring individual courage and tactical improvisation, and offensive opportunity demanding quick decisions and aggressive exploitation. The Remagen achievement overshadowed the division's other contributions in popular memory. The bridge capture provided a clean narrative: sudden opportunity, bold action, strategic success. The Bulge fighting, by contrast, represented confusion, casualties, and defensive necessity. Yet veterans who experienced both actions often spoke more of the Bulge's desperate nights than Remagen's celebrated crossing. Today, the 9th Armored Division exists primarily in historical memory and veterans' accounts. The division's distinctive shoulder patch, a three-cornered design representing armor, speed, and striking power, appears in museums alongside artifacts from both the Bulge and Remagen. The Ludendorff Bridge's remains at Remagen now house a museum dedicated to the crossing and the division's role in capturing it. Digital reconstruction has brought new attention to the division's actions. Video games set during World War II often feature Remagen missions, allowing players to recreate the bridge assault. Documentary filmmakers regularly examine the capture, interviewing surviving veterans and analyzing tactical decisions. Historical preservation groups maintain sites associated with the division's operations, from Luxembourg's forests to Remagen's riverbank. Standing before preserved M4 Sherman tanks or examining the Remagen Bridge towers, one confronts questions about how military units achieve distinction. The 9th Armored Division was not unique in organization, equipment, or training. Dozens of American armored divisions fought with similar resources and doctrine. Yet, this particular division found itself at Remagen on March 7, 1945, when the bridge stood intact. It fought at Beaufort on December 18, 1944, when German offensive required desperate defense. These moments combined preparation with circumstance. The division's training and leadership enabled it to exploit opportunities and survive crises. But opportunity and crisis themselves arrived through factors beyond the division's control. Military history often turns on such intersections when capable units encounter decisive moments, creating outcomes that define their legacies. The 9th Armored Division's story reveals the nature of American armored warfare during World War II's final year. Units moved rapidly across Europe, sometimes defending, sometimes attacking, always adapting to fluid situations. Individual soldiers served in crew positions, absorbed casualties, shifted roles as needed. Divisions executed operations ranging from desperate night counterattacks to exploiting strategic breakthroughs. Success required both institutional capability and individual performance under conditions far removed from training expectations. For the tank crews, armored infantry, and supporting personnel who served in the 9th Armored Division, these broader strategic narratives mattered less than immediate tactical realities. They fought in enclosed Luxembourg terrain, crossed a damaged Rhine bridge under fire, and drove through Austria's spring landscapes. Their service connected preparation to performance, doctrine to execution, and training to combat. Their collective experience, preserved in records and memory, demonstrates how one division among many achieved distinction through the unpredictable combination of preparation, meeting opportunity at history's decisive moments.